All right, so you wanted a deep dive into Sapiens, huh? Well, buckle up because this book is a wild ride through, well, the whole history of humankind.
It really is. I mean, Harari covers it all from those first moments of like, what even makes us human all the way to the world we're living in right now.
And get this, he doesn't just start with, the pyramids or something. He goes way back to when there were multiple human species hanging out on Earth at the same time.
Yeah. Imagine Neanderthals just like chilling in your neighborhood, talking about
Uh,
an identity crisis.
right. Makes you wonder what would happen if things shook out differently. But okay, so Harari says the real turning point for us, the thing that put us on the path to, well, everything, was this thing he calls the cognitive revolution. But here's the thing. It wasn't just that our brains got bigger.
It was like our brain software got a massive upgrade. One theory Harari talks about is that our ability to communicate, to have complex language like we are right now, might have actually started with something pretty unexpected.
Gossip.
Okay, hold on. Office gossip, I understand, but prehistoric gossip, now I got to know more.
Right. So picture this. You're living in a small group of hunter-gatherers. Knowing who to trust, who might steal your food, who's going to be a reliable partner when you're out hunting, that's crucial information.
Yeah, I mean, those are some high stakes.
Exactly. Being able to spread that kind of information, to talk about all the complicated social dynamics
Right.
that gave those early humans a serious edge.
So instead of, can you believe what they're wearing,
Wow.
it was more like, did you see how Ugg took down that mammoth? I want that guy on my team. Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. That ability to share information, to talk about things that weren't right there in front of them, that led to something even more powerful, shared myths.
Myths, like Zeus and all that.
Well, not just those kinds of myths. What we're talking about here are the stories and ideas that bring people together. Things like gods, yes, but also nations, laws, even corporations. Those are all kinds of shared myths.
Whoa, you're blowing my mind here a little. So you're saying like a company isn't just a building or a logo, it's an idea that enough people believe in to give it power.
Exactly. Think about money. It's the perfect example. It has no value in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
It only works because we've all agreed to believe in the system.
Okay, that's kind of freaky when you put it like that.
It is. It's like a shared hallucination that runs the world.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You're saying this ability to believe in things we can't even touch, these shared myths, is what allowed humans to cooperate in huge numbers, build empires, invent money, basically, shape the entire planet.
That's what Harari argues, and it's pretty convincing when you think about it.
It really makes you look at everything differently.
It really does. And that actually brings us to the next major turning point in human history that Harari talks about, the agricultural revolution. Now, most of us think of farming as progress, right?
Hmm.
But Harari, he asks us to question that assumption. He says it was a trade-off, and not always for the better.
Okay, now I gotta know more about these downsides to farming. I thought it was all like sunshine and fresh veggies. Okay, so farming, not all sunshine and roses. I gotta admit, never really thought about it like that. What were those downsides again?
Well, imagine for a second, you're a hunter-gatherer, right? You've got this varied diet, you're moving around, getting your steps in, probably more free time than we realize, honestly.
Okay, yeah, I see where you're going with this.
Then boom, agriculture hits the scene. Suddenly, you're stuck in one place, eating the same stuff day in, day out, working way more. Oh, and don't forget about the whole new diseases from living on top of each other and with animals thing.
Yikes. Didn't think about that.
Right, not exactly a selling point. And the real kicker is once you go down that road, it's kind of hard to go back. You've put in all the work, clearing the land, planting, building a whole life in this one spot.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, even if you wanted to go back to hunting and gathering, it's not like you could just pick up and leave. Plus, like Harari was saying, you've got all these extra mouths to feed with agriculture, upping the population and all.
Totally. It's like a one-way ticket. you know.
Yeah.
And this is where those shared myths we talked about, they become even more important. Because now you're dealing with these bigger, more complicated societies.
Yeah.
You got to keep things running smoothly.
So you need more rules, more, like, structure.
Exactly. You need hierarchies, leaders, laws,
Yeah.
a whole system of beliefs and ways of doing things to make sure it all doesn't fall apart.
Okay, so is this where writing comes in? Like, to keep track of everything?
Bingo.
Yeah.
And it's funny, right? Because we think about ancient people, and we use this word primitive. But writing, that was a game changer, a total brain hack.
Oh, I never thought about it like that. But yeah, I guess it totally changed how much info we could store and share.
Right. And here's the thing. Forget poems or love letters,
Yeah.
right? The first writing, it was all about dot accounting.
No way.
taxes and stuff.
Seriously, think about it. You've got this growing city-state, right? You need to track taxes, trade, who owes what to whom. Writing, it was like this external hard drive for information,
Mm.
allowed for a level of complexity that, well, that just wasn't possible before.
So like the original Excel spreadsheet,
Right.
which eventually paved the way for, well, everything we know about civilization.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of large-scale civilization, that brings us to another juicy bit from the book.
Yeah.
Empires. It's easy to think of them as, all bad. And don't get me wrong, a lot of them were brutal. But Harari, he encourages us to look a little deeper. Deeper? How so? It's not like all those conquests and all the bad stuff didn't happen.
Sure, sure. But empires, they weren't just about brute force. They also created these huge networks of trade, cultural exchange, even periods of relative peace and stability, believe it or not.
Okay, so like a mixed bag then. Empires, that is.
That's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, take the Roman Empire, right? Obviously, its fair share of, not great stuff, but also connected huge chunks of the world. And not just through, force. They had trade, cultural exchange, a legal system that we still feel the effects of today.
Huh, so it's kind of like how we talk about the internet now. Connecting everyone, good and bad.
There you go. Exactly. And speaking of things that connect us money, Harari has this whole chapter on it, calls it like the ultimate shared fiction.
Yeah, we touched on that a bit earlier, but I gotta say, the more I think about it, the weirder it gets. Like, how can something that has basically zero value on its own, it's paper, right? Or even just like numbers on a screen, how can that have so much power over our lives?
$1 million question, right? And Harari's answer is basically, well, because we all agree it does. Like, it's this collective leap of faith that makes it possible to, trade, build economies, even measure the value of our work.
So next time I'm like stressing over my bank account, I should just remember it's all kind of made up.
Kind of, yeah. It's like this magic trick we're all in on. And I mean, it's been a crazy successful one, right? Shaped so much of history, for better or worse. But then from empires and money, Harari takes us in another direction, religion, specifically the rise of monotheism. It's wild how in this world full of like different gods and beliefs, you have these religions, Christianity, Islam, that spread like wildfire. And often it's tied up with those powerful empires we were just talking about. So why do you think that is? What was it about those specific belief systems?
Yeah, Harari, he really digs into that. It's complex, but one thing he points out is these monotheistic religions, they offered something people really craved, especially in those times order, unity, in a world that often felt pretty chaotic. Like they provided clear rules to live by, explanations for the unknown, and hope for something beyond this life. Powerful stuff.
And we got to remember, it wasn't just, preaching and converting, the spread of these religions. It was often tied up with conquest, trade, hard power. It reminds you that ideas, they don't just float around out there. They're always bumping up against, influencing, getting used by the forces of history.
Totally. It's all connected.
Yeah.
Which, actually, that brings us to another huge turning point in Harari's story, the scientific revolution. Now, you might think, whoa, hold on. Empires, religion, now science, big jump. But Harari, he connects the dots beautifully. He argues that what kicked off this whole revolution and how we understand the world was a surprisingly simple shift, admitting we don't know everything.
So, like, instead of clinging to old ideas or saying, oh, the gods control everything, it was more like, I wonder how this works. Let's experiment and find out.
Exactly. That curiosity, that willingness to question, it led to some amazing breakthroughs. Medicine, astronomy, physics, you name it. But of course, every revolution has its downsides, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can't just gloss over that. What did Harari point out?
Right. So he talks about how, for all its progress, science was often tangled up with, imperialism. Like, think about those European explorers, right? Charting new lands, making discoveries, but also often exploiting and conquering the people they met along the way.
Right. Another reminder that progress, it doesn't always mean better for everyone, does it?
Nope. And then, of course, we hit the Industrial Revolution, which Harari describes it as like hitting fast forward on history. Technology just explodes. But that brought a whole bunch of new challenges. Cities swelling with people, factories, mass production. Life changed faster than ever before.
Yeah, and I imagine that wasn't easy for a lot of people, that shift from like an agricultural life to the rhythm of factories, the city. That's a huge adjustment. Kind of makes you wonder, Are we really cut out for this?
It's a good question, and one that Harari doesn't shy away from. I mean, he's
Yeah.
honest about the downsides of all this progress, the environmental costs, the ethical questions around, factory farming. He even asked this really thought-provoking question: are we actually happier now than our hunter-gatherer ancestors were?
Whoa, that is a question, right? Like, we've accomplished so much as a species, but at what cost?
Exactly. And that's what makes Sapiens so powerful. It's not just a history lesson. It's an invitation to think critically about, well, everything. Ourselves, our potential, and where we go from here. Especially as we enter this whole new era, genetic engineering, AI, the possibility of creating entirely new forms of life. It's almost like, are we on the verge of becoming gods? Or, something else entirely? Harari leaves us with that question, and honestly, I think it's the perfect one to end on.
It really is. To our listeners who wanted the inside scoop on Sapiens, we hope this deep dive gave you a lot to chew on. This book, it's not just about the past. It's about understanding who we are right now in this crazy, complex world we've created, and maybe, just maybe, it'll give us some clues about where we're headed next. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep on learning.